Hello, my friend. You just made the best click of the day. Welcome to my channel. If this is your first time, hit subscribe and pass this video along to your buddies. And tell me, where in the world are you right now? I treasure all your comments. Now let's rock. Let me cut right to the chase. My wife and I got married when we were both 25 years old. We're 38 now. We met during college, fell in love, graduated together, and began building our future side by side. Early in our careers, we both secured stable, well-paying jobs, so money was never something we had to argue about. She worked at her father's small business, while I joined a large, well-established corporation. Several years into my job, my boss abruptly resigned, creating a leadership vacuum. I was the only one with enough expertise to take over, so I stepped up. The promotion came with a major increase in salary, more generous bonuses, and top-of-the-line benefits. By the age of 28, I was earning 3 times my wife's income. That same year, we welcomed our first daughter into the world. 2 years after that, our second was born. Because she worked for her dad, my wife had a much more adaptable schedule, which helped us balance parenting and careers. But then, about 5 years ago, everything changed. Her father died unexpectedly. Suddenly, she and her mother had a major decision to make: take over the company or sell it. Her mom had no business experience, so my wife stepped in and took charge. To her credit, she didn't just keep it running, she maintained the same level of success her father had. Eventually, the company grew under her leadership, and she began earning more than me. I wasn't resentful at all. On the contrary, I admired her for it. Running a business is no small feat, and she handled it with confidence and grace. However, as time went on, the strain of both of us working full-time began to affect our daughters. We sat down and had a long talk. One of us needed to be present for them full-time. She looked at me and said, "Your company will survive without you. Mine might not." I understood the logic. I quit my job and took on the full-time role of stay-at-home dad and house manager. I fully committed to it, raising the girls, keeping the house clean, cooking every meal, running errands, taking care of repairs, and doing everything I could to make sure she came home to peace, not stress. For a while, she genuinely appreciated the balance I created. But something shifted about a year ago. She began making cutting remarks, saying things like, "What do you even do all day?" Or, "Maybe you should try having a real job again." That hurt. I had left my career behind to support our family, to support her. I had a real job, and I gave it up for our home. On top of that, she'd always been passionate and physical, but she suddenly stopped initiating any intimacy. When I tried, she rejected me every time. It was so unlike her that I chalked it up to stress or burnout. Maybe it was the pandemic, or maybe business was weighing on her. I responded by doubling down, doing everything I could to be helpful, kind, present. I kept trying to cheer her up, bring back the spark, but nothing worked. Then came last weekend. Our eldest daughter had a softball game. I packed everything up, made sure we got there early. I wanted to film part of the game to send to my parents, who live far away and rarely get to see the kids. I'd forgotten my phone at home, so I asked to use my wife's. She'd been glued to it all day anyway. Maybe this would be a break for her. She handed it over and walked off to grab a drink and snack. While filming, a notification popped up on her screen, from a messaging app. I tapped it, and what I saw destroyed me. She'd been exchanging explicit messages and media with one of her employees, someone 8 years younger than her. The texts were filled with sexual content, photos, videos, and worst of all, mockery. They joked about me. He called me weak, saying I couldn't provide for my women. She agreed. She even called me pathetic. I sat there in silence, completely numb, my heart racing and my stomach churning. I couldn't believe what I was reading. When I heard her footsteps returning, I closed the app and kept recording like nothing had happened. On the way home and later in the evening, she tried to chat like it was a normal day, but I couldn't bring myself to respond. That night in bed, she tried to engage in intimacy on her own, probably for the first time in months. I refused. I told her I wasn't in the mood. Her answer? If you're going to act like a bitch, go sleep on the couch. So I did. And I've been in the guest room ever since. I feel completely unmoored. My wife was my world. My daughters are my world. And now everything seems to be falling apart. I'm devastated. If anyone has any advice, I could really use it right now. I'm barely holding on. Update. I can't thank you all enough for the support and honest advice. I want to clear up a few things that many of you asked about. Yes, I've backed everything up. The text conversations, the photos, the videos, it's all stored securely. Regarding the company, no, I don't own any of it. My wife and her mother split it equally, 50-50. I have no stake. As for sleeping arrangements, no. I haven't gone back to our bedroom. I've been in the guest room since that night and will remain there. I've made my decision. I'm filing for divorce. This morning, I contacted a highly rated law firm in a neighboring city to avoid any local conflicts of interest. As luck would have it, someone had canceled, and they managed to fit me in the same day. I dropped off the girls at school and drove straight there. The consultation went better than I imagined. The attorney was thorough, sharp, and kind. I presented all the evidence I had collected. He told me I had a very strong case. Given that I left my job to care for the children full-time, that she's rarely home, that she's actively cheating, and that her affair partner seems to take precedence over her role as a mother, the court would not look kindly on her. He outlined what a likely outcome would look like. I would receive child support and spousal support. I'd be awarded the house, and she would be responsible for continuing the mortgage payments as long as the children are living here. He also said we could file for additional financial relief, potentially covering education or job retraining expenses for me, given my status as vocationally displaced. And for those of you who advised me not to get a job just yet, you were absolutely right. The attorney strongly warned me against taking any form of employment until the divorce is finalized. Doing so could negatively affect the level of support I'm eligible for. He then asked me if I wanted full custody. I told him I didn't want to cut their mother out of their lives, but I did want to be their primary caregiver. Maybe let her have them some weekends. Because she conducted the affair in our home, he said we have significant legal leverage. Introducing an unrelated man into the family home could be seen as creating an unsafe environment for the children. That, he said, would make a strong case for full custody, with her limited to a couple weekends per month. Retelling. No other man is going to be allowed near my daughters. If I find out otherwise, there will be serious consequences. I've made it absolutely clear that I won't accept her affair partner having any contact with them. My lawyer strongly advised that I stay silent until the final documents are ready. Once everything is in order, he'll have someone serve her officially, requiring her to leave the house by law. He expects that to happen sometime next week, and emphasized again that I need to keep things quiet until then. He told me point blank, "I know you're hurt and furious, but you need to stay quiet until everything is finalized." He assured me that once the divorce is complete, I'll be free to speak as I wish, but until that moment comes, I must not rock the boat. He told me to maintain a calm front, no arguments, no scenes, to sleep in another room, and not to have any physical contact with her. I agreed and asked him why that mattered so much. He simply said, "Trust me. Follow my instructions exactly." So here I am, back at the house, cooking dinner, pretending like things are normal, even though I'm just counting the days until she gets served next week. I'm grateful for everyone who offered advice, even the brutally honest opinions. My attorney also strongly recommended I get checked for STDs and confirm the paternity of both my daughters. When I asked why that was necessary, he explained that affairs like this are rarely one-time mistakes. That truth hit hard and left me shaken. Update number 2. Hello again. I just want to express how much I appreciate the supportive messages over the last few weeks. Emotionally, this has been one of the lowest points of my life. Before I go further, I should mention that I cleared these updates with my lawyer. I didn't share specifics, but I was told that as long as I keep things general and avoid naming names or compromising legal positions, I'm fine to continue. So here's where things stand now. I followed both of his initial recommendations. I got a full STD panel and arranged for DNA testing for both of my girls. Thankfully, everything came back clean. Honestly, that didn't surprise me. I haven't had much physical contact with my wife for a long time anyway. Now, the question I know many people have been wondering about: the paternity results. Am I their biological father? Yes, without a doubt. And beyond biology, I'm their father in every way that matters. The relief I felt when I got that confirmation is impossible to put into words. I never thought I'd be in a situation where I'd even have to question something like that. But this is the reality I'm in. As for my soon-to-be ex-wife, she's no longer living under my roof. The court awarded me full temporary custody of our children. I might share more details later, but for now, I'll just say she's out. My lawyer handled the process and made sure her removal was done correctly and legally. It wasn't a pleasant situation, and I'll spare the details for now. She was served at work, and from what I've heard, it didn't go well. My daughters know something is happening. My oldest understands that the two of us are splitting up. One of her friend's parents went through something similar, so she's already deeply affected and scared. She's been begging me to let their mom come back home. At my lawyer's urging, I've set up therapy sessions for both girls so they can start working through their emotions with a professional. My youngest just keeps asking when her mommy is coming back. It's crushing. It makes me feel like I've failed them somehow. I've even asked myself if maybe I should have just looked the other way and let my wife continue cheating if it meant keeping our family together, for the kids' sake. There was a moment where I even considered the idea of an open marriage, just to keep the family unit intact until they're older. But I know that wouldn't work. Kids pick up on the truth. They know when love is gone. Right now, she's staying at her mother's place. Surprisingly, my mother-in-law reached out and asked to talk. I agreed. We hadn't spoken much, but she wanted to sit down and have a conversation. She begged me not to cut her granddaughters out of her life. I told her, "You're a great grandmother. As long as you're able to keep your relationship with them separate from the conflict between me and your daughter, I have no reason to stand in the way." She appreciated that, and that was the end of our discussion. Meanwhile, my ex has been relentlessly texting and calling, trying to reopen a conversation about us. But following my lawyer's advice, I now only speak to her through a secure, monitored messaging app. And the subject is strictly the children, nothing more. That's where things stand right now. Once all of this is behind me, I plan to share a final, comprehensive post detailing everything I've had to hold back so far. Update number 3. Yes, it's true. I ended up having Thanksgiving dinner with my soon-to-be ex and my mother-in-law. The only reason I agreed was for the sake of our daughters, and only after getting a legal green light from my attorney that it wouldn't create a false impression of reconciliation. We settled that ahead of time. A few days before the holiday, I met with my mother-in-law privately. We had a respectful conversation focused mostly on how to co-parent effectively and ensure the girls' well-being once the divorce is finalized. Then she shared something unexpected. Apparently, my wife had started dating someone new, and that relationship ended in betrayal. I hadn't even known she was seeing anyone. According to her mother, the man came from an affluent, powerful family and was known to be trouble. Eventually, she caught him with his face between another woman's legs. Her mom was appalled and disgusted by the whole thing. She also told me she never had faith in my wife's previous boyfriends in college, but when she met me, she knew I was the one her daughter should marry. She apologized multiple times for her daughter's actions and promised to do what she could to keep the divorce from spiraling out of control. A few days before Thanksgiving, she asked if I'd consider coming over with the girls for dinner. I asked, "Is she going to be there?" She said yes. I told her I couldn't be in the same space if my ex was going to be present. She understood, but softly pleaded, "Just this once, for the girls. One last family holiday together." She told me to run it by my attorney, and if they said no, she wouldn't press it. I consulted my lawyer. They said if I did attend, I'd need to communicate, through the monitored app, that this visit was purely for the kids and did not signify any attempt at reconciliation. So I did just that and made it very clear in writing. My ex had already been asking to see both me and the girls. The children had also been pleading to see their mom. So for their sake, I swallowed my pride and I went. The atmosphere was strained. My estranged wife welcomed our daughters with warm hugs, no issue there. But then she turned toward me, as if we were still together, and tried to kiss and embrace me. I quietly stepped back and made my way to embrace my mother-in-law instead. Despite everything, my wife continued acting like we were a couple, making small talk and trying to be close. I kept my replies short, mostly yes or no, and focused on assisting my mother-in-law in the kitchen with dinner and cleaning. As a woman of faith, my mother-in-law insisted on saying grace before the meal. My wife sat next to me, once again pretending everything between us was fine. I took my daughter's hand, and when my wife reached out for mine, I pulled away, not harshly, just firmly. Maybe it seemed unkind, but I couldn't tolerate physical contact from her. Though I don't practice any religion, I bowed my head during the prayer out of respect. Dinner itself went without incident. But my wife kept slipping into old patterns, bringing up Christmas plans, vacations, and trips, as if we were still an intact family. That was the moment I realized coming tonight had been a mistake. Once the meal ended, I quietly took care of clearing the dishes we had used. I was ready to leave, but the girls asked to stay a little longer to watch a movie they used to enjoy with their mother. I agreed, and we moved into the living room. My wife tried to sit beside me and lean into me for comfort, but I got up and took another seat. Throughout the evening, I noticed my mother-in-law giving her daughter disapproving looks. She seemed genuinely upset by her behavior. After the movie ended, we began packing up to head out. Both of my daughters had fallen asleep by then, so I carried them out to the car one after the other. When I returned to collect a few belongings we'd left behind, my wife stopped me in the hallway. She was crying and pleaded with me to reconsider, to give our marriage another try, to piece our family back together. Before I could answer, her mother came storming down the hallway, grabbed her by the hair, and screamed at her to stop. Then she turned to me, said, "Good night," in a cold tone, and immediately turned her anger back toward her daughter. That was how the evening ended. I called my attorney the next day to give him an update. Nothing about that night suggested any chance at reconciliation. In fact, her recent messages only reinforced that the relationship was beyond repair. So here we are. She keeps calling, keeps texting, begging for another chance. I don't respond unless it concerns the girls. I'm almost certain she'll try to involve herself in our holiday plans, but I'm not sure I'll allow that. Like with everything else, I'll run it by my lawyer. Now for the latest and most significant development. Our daughters had 2 therapy appointments this week. The first one went better than expected. They left the session noticeably calmer and more settled. Afterward, I spoke briefly with the therapist. She struck me as perceptive and genuinely in tune with the girls' emotional states. Encouraged by that, I brought them back for the second session. And that's when everything unraveled. During that second appointment, the therapist decided to explain to the girls, using language appropriate for their ages, that their mother had been unfaithful, that she had broken the family's trust, and that this was the reason for our separation. I always knew the truth would come out eventually, but I didn't expect it to happen this soon. When I arrived to pick them up, both girls ran to me in tears. They clung to me, sobbing, repeating how much they loved me. I held them tightly, trying to stay composed even though it crushed me inside. This wasn't how I had hoped they'd learn the truth. I pulled the therapist aside and asked her why she had told them. She explained that the girls had already sensed something was deeply wrong. They could feel the distance I was keeping from their mother. "They're more aware than you think," she said. She added that she had been careful, not giving every detail, only enough to address the emotional blockage that had been preventing real progress in therapy. She reassured me the explanation was tailored to their age and emotional capacity. And so, now they know, at least part of it. They know their mother betrayed the trust that held our family together. My older daughter might eventually be able to process it. My younger one? I don't know. Later that night, after we got home, they wouldn't let me out of their arms. They clung to me for hours, still crying. I ordered dinner, turned on their favorite movies, and we all curled up together in my room. Eventually, they cried themselves to sleep. I went into the bathroom, shut the door, and finally allowed myself to break down too. Their mother has no idea how deeply this is affecting them. I spoke to the therapist again to discuss how we should proceed. She mentioned that medication might be a temporary solution to help them cope. I immediately rejected the idea. She understood and made it clear she wasn't authorized to prescribe anything herself. It would require a formal diagnosis from their regular doctor. But even so, I don't want my daughters medicated. I'd rather support them emotionally and help them heal naturally, with care and patience. As for Christmas, I doubt they'll ask to see their mom. My eldest already told me she doesn't want to. Her little sister often follows her lead, but this time, I think she genuinely feels the same. I was stunned. I gently tried to explain, "You don't hate her, you're just hurt. She still loves you." But my oldest looked up at me with tears in her eyes and said, "No, she doesn't." Then she buried her face in my chest and cried herself to sleep, her little sister still wrapped around her. This is what life looks like for us now.